Hi, welcome to the coaching game. I'm Laurie Lawson, and look who's over here.
Oh, I'm Terry Yoffe, and welcome to Coaches Creating Change. I love doing this with you, Laurie. We've been doing it a while, and I look forward to it. I love seeing you in person.
I know.
But
We
here we
will.
are.
We're gonna. Hope springs eternal, and we're gonna be optimistic about that. But thank heavens for Zoom because we can, still get together.
Right, exactly. What a great thing.
And Terry and I get together anyway behind the scenes, and we're always talking about coaching and what's going on with coaching and what are we personally doing with coaching. And we decided today we kind of kick that around a little bit because we feel that the role of coaching is kind of changing in light of all the crazy and wonderful things that are going on. So I don't know, Terry, you kind of broached this subject. So what were your thoughts on it?
I don't want to be held with my feet to the fire on this one, but it seems that there's a natural progression after what we've been through last year and where we're still at, and nobody knows where we'll be. But it just feels like the word coaching, which we've all kind of known and take our ethical pledges and living up to the ethics and standards of coaching. My sense is it needs to be maybe redefined because of what's wanted and needed. The issue is what's out there, what's wanted and needed in the universe. And as coaches, our obligation is to meet what's wanted and needed and not be stuck in, well, this is what I do. I'm a coach and I wear that hat. I just don't see that. I was having this discussion and how it came up with a fellow friend coach. And I said, coaching just sounds like an old word. Not that it is. So my thinking or my thought, and obviously it's my perspective, where do we go? How do we serve our clients?
Interesting, because and I think you remember in 2019 or last year? Last year was just such a blur. But anyway, International Coach Federation changed its name to International Coaching Federation, which in a sense was an expansion because it was originally, created for coaches. And then it was like, no, it's coaching. And so they've expanded that a little bit. But I think you've kind of hit the nail on the head, because if we've learned nothing from 2020, it's that flexibility and adaptability is the name of the game. So even though we've expanded coaches to coaching, it's like coaching out there is, we have to be ready to meet the need. Even if we're not sure what that need is, we've got to stand out there and say, okay, here's what I see as the need right now, and let me give it a try. So that's it's and we've learned you can predict the future all you want, but it's just there's no guarantee. There's no guarantee.
No, there isn't. And I think as coaches, we have to follow the lead of our clients and what's wanted and needed for each of them. And certainly what we saw last year was managers, owners, CEOs, whatever title you want to call the boss, it's morphed into being a vulnerable human being.
Oh, that's interesting.
They've had to be that, going from control to collaboration. Because here were people working remotely, not knowing, excuse me, what was going to happen to their jobs. Were they going to be laid off? Was the company going to fold? And all of this was on the shoulders of leaders. And how do they show up in a way that makes employees feel comfortable while being uncomfortable, and being willing to show their vulnerability while everyone else is so vulnerable.
And also being willing to give up what's always worked before. You know, and it's a shame because you go to college and you learn as much as you can, and then you go out and you test it in the world, and oh, you've got it down. This is the formula. Formula changed, or the, I don't know, the goal changed. But it's hard to give up. It's like, oh, this has always worked before. This is what our customers needed before. This is what our clients needed. And now it's like, I don't know, I'm not sure what they need. So how do you lead when you yourself are, you know, not really sure of the path? The path is not quite as clear as we once thought it was.
Is this a leader or a coach?
Or both? Well, I think coaches have to be, you know what, that's a good point. Yeah, coaches too. How do we coach? Yeah, definitely for a leader, but how do we coach leaders? But how do we as coaches, how do we help? No, that's a great question. How do we help our clients when we're not really sure, you know, what's needed and what can even help ourselves at this point?
And I think it goes to asking the client, how can I serve you? What is it that's wanted and needed for you in your growth, your development, your awareness? My hunch is it's going to be about, how do I navigate this new whatever? Because I think it's a very slippery slope if we look in the rearview mirror. And I do this, obviously I use a car as an analogy with clients a lot. The rearview mirror, it gives us lessons, but we can't go for a playbook looking in the rearview mirror any longer. We can have lessons in what we've learned, what we've seen, but it's being in the present, which is the dashboard, and then looking out the windshield. What direction? I've been working with clients on a lot on navigating this, you know, diversity and inclusion. I've worked a lot with that with one of my clients. Or how do they navigate bad situations, or, you know, what's going on? How do they adjust to remote work and Zoom work? Communication, that has got to be probably at the top of the chart in how to behavioral skills, communication.
That's interesting, definitely, because things that weren't prevalent in 2019 are so prevalent now. And you're right, how to communicate without being there totally, how to communicate on Zoom, how to communicate, how to become vulnerable, how to be vulnerable and say, you know what, I'm not sure what you need. Tell me how I can serve you. I love that you use that term. How can we serve you? You know, it's not just a customer, you know, a thing that you ask a customer now. It's like, well, we're coaches. And it's like, I'm thinking maybe rather than say, okay, we'll do X, Y, and Z, and we'll make a SMART goal and we'll get you where you want to go. It might be, I've got some tools. I've got some tools to help you navigate. And let's see if any of these tools will help you either get through or move beyond where you are right now.
Yeah, again, it's when I say coaching in its pure form, maybe we wear 3 or 4 different hats. Maybe a client wants a friend. Maybe a client wants somebody to kind of tell them what to do, but not. A mentor, a real partner that's willing to take off one hat and put on another hat, and take off that hat and put on another hat. So we may be multidimensional in what we've got to offer moving forward.
That's interesting because, as you know, we as coaches trained in the old school, but a couple of you and I are both old coaches in the sense that we've been doing it for a while. We were told, no, that's not your job. Your job is, to ask questions and that's it, and coach. But I'm thinking now that we need to bring more resources to the table. I know you and I both have a background in human resources. And I think, I think we need to bring all of our skills to the table and intertwine them and use them to the best advantage that we can to help our clients now.
I totally agree. I totally agree. And I don't know, it doesn't matter what level on the Richter scale somebody is in their company or they're an entrepreneur. Everyone is struggling with how do we move forward? Also it's about, I think, being, as you said in the beginning, flexible, resilient.
Yeah.
Being willing to shift gears at any given moment. You may have a strategy and you may have a plan in place. You initiate a plan and then you see, oh, this plan isn't what's wanted and needed. How do I shift to a new one? So it's not holding on tightly to what you believe is right, because I don't know that there's anything that's right at this point. I mean, companies want to stay in business for sure, and evolve and grow. And, there's also bottom line.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So it's figuring out how to navigate. And, a word I like is servant leadership.
Mm-hmm. Say more about that.
Servant leadership is a leader that serves its company, that is servicing its people, that doesn't necessarily have all the answers, that goes into the trenches.
Okay.
And see what's wanted and needed. I think Zoom and remote work is here to stay. Oh. There may be a hybrid. People, might not go back to work every day. Mm-hmm. And of course, there will be companies where they will. And we're taking a lot of lessons from last year, a lot. And I think I was telling Laurie before we got on the call, I have a friend that goes into companies and does executive coaching. And I asked him, what is he hearing? What's the beat of the drums, if you will? And where does he think coaching is going and what is wanted with clients? And he said some things that we've already talked about. But one interesting thing he said was, a lot will be mirrored in coaching by what happens in the country. How companies evolve. That might come back to how people get coached.
As it should, actually. I mean, that makes such perfect sense. It's like, there's no point in coaching. I'm trying to think of something that would be totally irrelevant at this point. How to do business lunches. That doesn't happen right now. So there's no sense in coaching how to do that. It might be, we might coach how to network in other effective ways. So yeah, it definitely has to mirror what's going on, and it has to be so ready to change, so ready. I know you wrote a blog a million years ago now, and I love it. The title, it's Dancing on Shifting Sands. Mm-hmm. And it's like, you really have to become very nimble and very flexible and within balance if you can. And it's hard because we're all going through this, coaches and other not coaches, but you really have to sort of be willing to just at the drop of a hat go, oh, all right, I see a need here, you know, whereas I thought I was going this way, but I'm really going that way. And just move with the tide. Is that a good analogy?
Yeah. That's true. And I honestly, we are servant coaches, if you will.
We're trying. Yeah.
We serve our clients.
Yeah.
And it's all about, for us not to figure it out, but to ask them the questions. What's wanted and needed right now? What's going on? Where are your strengths and where do you see your challenges? Certainly a big challenge is, how do I be vulnerable and not appear weak? Because so many people and clients, many clients, think of vulnerability as being weak.
Definitely. And that I hope is going to be something, I hope that's a lesson that we're going to continue to learn. And just the strength in vulnerability, you know, it's like how it just creates a bond, because we're all vulnerable in a certain degree. So how it creates a bond with everyone if you're truly, rather than the bully, you know, which we've all experienced. And that's another shift too. I mean, now that our politics went from one end of the spectrum, hopefully, to the other end, and we're going to swing in the middle at some point, and we have to ride with it, whether we like it or not. We had to deal with 2020. We have to deal with 2021. So it's all out there, and you're right. I think coaching just is not. It has to be a bigger scope, a bigger view or something, because we're dealing with politics, we're dealing with personal stuff, we're dealing with our clients, and we're dealing with businesses that have changed. It's just I don't want to say a mishmash. It's just a lot of challenges going on simultaneously. Yeah.
Correct. And you know, what's gone on in the universe has gone on in each of us and extended to the companies we work with, or even people we interact with. I think nobody has a handle on where we're headed, really. You know, I think there's new roadmaps to be created. And
pencil, not in ink, because we just aren't sure. We'll do them in pencil, and so we can
exactly. It doesn't have to be in ink,
exactly,
or blood.
Right? Yes, really.
And I'm sure the ICF is also looking at redefining, rebranding, re-identifying how they put the word out, what their definitions are. Just makes sense.
Well, they've created a new logo, not that but it's more colorful, and I like that. And they've also created one of, they're calling it families now, and one of their families has been entitled Leadership Thought. And it's just
leadership,
like
what?
Thought.
Okay.
And it's like, how or do we combine computer, intelligence with coaching? Can it be done? Can one replace the other? With thoughts, just places where conversations about the future can happen, not necessarily decisions, but conversations that, you know, what's on the horizon? Where should we be looking? And you mentioned that you filled out the survey, and they say that all of this is a result of the survey results, and they're responding to what members said that they needed. So, and that's it. It's like, where do you have besides you and I, where do you have a conversation about coaching in the future? You and your friend had one, but it's on an individual. But it would be nice to be able to get together with a lot of people and get a lot of people from around the world, not only, you know, in our local area, just to hear what's happening and what's going on in different countries and things like that. So the expansion, I'm going to say, is on, you know, and what it means for us. I just think a willing that we have to be willing to expand also.
I love that. We should bring that up to ICF. There should be a global Zoom about
Right.
what's going on wherever you are. What do they find is wanted and needed?
Yeah.
I would, of course, I'm going to go out on a limb here, but I am sure that there's a common thread of what's wanted and needed, what's changed, you know, what skills are most needed at this time. Compassion, you know, more of the soft skills, the emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
Rather than the EQ, the IQ, instead of the IQ, the EQ.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you're right. That's probably very universal. I think another problem is it's like our leaders, and I'm talking that internationally now, our leaders have changed. We used to be, USA, #1. I'm not sure we're there now. And that's humbling and vulnerable, but it's like, okay, what role do we play as #2 or 3 or however far down you want to put it? And it would just be interesting to see. There might be some valuable lessons we can learn from other countries.
What I've been thinking about was President Biden in one of his talks talked about he will not tolerate any kind of inhumane ways of dealing with people. He said it. He said there will be no infighting. There will be no name call. I'm paraphrasing.
Yeah,
no name calling. Everyone will be treated with respect. And if that's not done, you're fired or you're being let go.
Yeah.
That sent, I think, it was kind of there, but to me, it so resonated with, because there's so much of that in companies. Backstabbing, infighting, competition, bullying, passive aggressiveness that cannot be tolerated anymore.
Yeah.
Social injustices. And even though the message seems soft, to me, it was very loud and very clear.
It was one of my favorite, there were so many favorite parts, but there was one of my favorite parts too. It was like, okay, and talk about a drastic change. I mean, the day before, it's like, yeah, that's the way you do it. You got to show the power and let them know who's boss. And then the next day, it's like, no, you can do that, but you got to do that in a civil, humane manner. And it's like, okay, it's kind of like putting on the brakes. You know, it's like, whoa, and screeching to a halt when somebody jumps in front of you. But it's like, okay, I'm willing to take that leap. I don't know if you were lucky enough, that I have it on tape, to watch the Celebrating America.
I had it on tape, I did.
And
I went through it, but
yeah,
it was all about America.
But it was done differently. I mean, usually it's like the power of the crowds. And it was done so well, though. It was like it showed leaders, it showed essential workers, it showed just a great variety, and it really I think it did a lot to bring us all together and show that human strain that you're talking about, the humanity. We've all been beaten and bruised, and not just Americans. I mean, the whole world is just like, what's going on?
Exactly.
And we're still going through it. So that is a prime example, I think, of how you can do things even better than they were done before, because we all got to see it. We didn't, I didn't get to go to any of the balls.
There weren't any.
No, but I mean, prior to this, when other people were inaugurated, that was not a part. But here you felt like, okay, we're all into this together. So I think that's an example of how we can bring the creativity and the flexibility and the adaptability to the table and say, okay, here's what we got. How can we make it fantastic?
And how do we grow and become more of who we are? That we're just not a coach. We're a human being that with all of our foibles and strengths and challenges, you know, and they're not hiring this person who walks on water, who's on a pedestal.
Who's going to straighten all their problems out.
Right,
Nah,
exactly,
not going to happen.
exactly.
But it's a partner. It's a partner in a
Right.
walk. There's a favorite thing that I see, I think on Facebook a lot. We're all just walking each other home. And I love that because that's really what we're doing. We're just walking each other, and we might have to drop somebody along and pick somebody else up. But yeah, that's such a good point. It's like, yeah, it's time to become humans.
About humanity.
Yeah.
That's the word. If I don't know where we're on with time, but
we have 2 minutes.
It's about humanity. And I have loved our humanity together and taking this journey with you.
Yeah, I loved it from day one, because I think we kind of started out together, even though we went to different schools. But it was like, even when we came together on the ICF board, it was like, we have to get more people involved. It's like, this needs to be a bigger organization. And we did it. And that was the goal. And I think we both carried that on. And now I think we're still carrying it on by doing the show and by, you know, helping our clients. And yeah, I'm open to any ideas we can come up with and make it even bigger, that expand it.
You know, I'm wishing and hoping that we serve as a voice from our little corner of the world. That's it, our little corner. So
exactly, because we could have given up the show and said, you know, because the studio closed again. I think I sent you that notice.
I'm happy you didn't.
Yeah, and we just said, you know what, let's find another way to get this done. And we're still doing that. So we're kind of trying to walk the walk and walk the talk, and we're going to keep
doing it.
Yeah, yeah. And so will ICF, because they just did a whole rebranding and listened to people who, they sent out the survey and they listened to the responses. So they're kind of doing their thing too. So I think we're in the right group, and there is a right group anymore. We're in a good group. We're in a good group that wants to go forward. So
it's been a lovely conversation. If anyone has any thoughts or you know, let us know. And I hope that we've embarked and we've kind of given some food for thought today.
You know, I think we have, and I think that maybe the biggest lesson is, it's like, go be yourself. Go be yourself. Go be human, be vulnerable, and hold out your hand and help somebody else. So I think those are great messages to leave everybody with. Terry Yoffe, I love working with you.
I do too.
And I'll see you next month.
Laurie Lawson, love you.
Love you too. Bye-bye.